Hello, Sooner Nation and Texas fans. Welcome to the inaugural edition of the Bevo Podcast, the only podcast exclusively dedicated to covering the greatest rivalry in college football,
That's right.
the University of Oklahoma and the University of Texas. I'm John Whitson. This is my good friend, Kevin Miller. Kevin, say hi to the folks.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here with us.
Hey, before we get started, we want to thank Brown O'Haver. That's who Kevin and I both work for sponsoring the Bevo Podcast, sponsoring this inaugural episode. And Brown O'Haver, we are a public insurance adjusting firm. We work for the insured, not the insurance company. So if you've had a loss and you would like somebody to take a second look at it, feel like you got shorted by the insurance company, give us a call, 405-735-5510. Let us work for you, not the insurance company. Kevin, I'm John from Brown O'Haver. People have heard me. Who are you?
Well, I'm Kevin from Brown O'Haver, from San Antonio, Texas. I've been living in Oklahoma for 5 years. I work for Brown O'Haver since the day I moved here. So
now, that day was interesting because we hired you on a Thursday. You got the offer letter on a Thursday. It was the first Thursday in October. I remember shaking your hand, congratulating you, and saying, now we just need to get a win this weekend, and this will be a great weekend for you. And you gave me like a really odd look.
Yes, correct.
Do you remember that?
Oh, how can I forget? Absolutely. Yeah.
And I looked at you and I said, wait a minute. Are you a Texas fan?
I said, I had to confess. I was hoping you wouldn't rescind the offer letter.
Listen, we considered it. But we won that week. That would have been, you said it, 2017, Lincoln Riley's first Red River rivalry.
Correct.
And I'm
Good
glad
game,
we
by
did.
the way.
I'm glad we did. Hey, we've been talking about doing this podcast now for 5 years. I mean, almost a week or two into you working for us, we've been talking about how much fun it would be to just talk OU Texas OU as much as possible. And now we have the opportunity. I'm really excited, man.
Hey, better late than never. You know, there's a long history there, so there's a lot to catch up on.
You know, the other thing too that's interesting is you and I have another connection. I'm from San Antonio. You're from San Antonio. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Holmes High School.
You went to Holmes?
Yeah.
And I went in the same district. I went to Taft High School.
Same district. Yeah.
You played football though, so you might have a little more insight into the game that we're going to discuss on an episodic basis. I played basketball, not very good, but I did play some basketball for Taft High School, just a little bit.
Same here. We had some really good athletes at the time, and I certainly was not one of them. So
yeah, it's just cool that we both. I mean, it was a really small world when we talked, and I'm excited to get this going. So
let's do it.
Another thing that I want to talk about is why now? Why is it now a good time for us to start a Bevo podcast?
Man, there's just so many things going on. I mean, the upcoming move to the SEC, a new coaching staff for OU, some, Texas with a second-year head coach. It's just so many moving parts. There's just so much to talk about.
I think that's something that we could hold a whole episode on is the move to the SEC.
Yeah.
But I just getting it kind of off my chest early. I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome for Oklahoma. I think it's awesome for Texas. I think it's awesome for college football. I'm excited about going to the SEC. Is Texas fan as excited as OU fan is?
We are excited. We're more excited about the road trips right now. We're a little bit concerned about competing on the field right now.
Is just real quick, what's the A&M thought? Are you excited to get to play A&M again? Do you want to play A&M again?
I do want to play A&M again. I miss that game. It was always fun. They're almost like your neighbors. You grew up in San Antonio. You know how it is. There are Longhorns everywhere, and then there's Aggies everywhere. And you go to school with them. You're friends with them. You go to church with them. They're everywhere. So it's a fun thing for bragging rights. I imagine it's like the Bedlam rivalry, except both teams win a little bit. It's a bit more balanced than the Bedlam. But it's fun. I absolutely miss playing them. I miss going to Kyle Field. It's a great place to watch a football game.
Can we agree that A&M is the most pathetic fan base in college football?
Yeah.
Does
Yes.
Texas has to feel that way, right? Even though,
Yes.
y'all haven't been worth a flip for 10 years. I mean, A&M is pathetic.
They're an interesting bunch. They do have a great home atmosphere, though. I'll give them that. If you ever get to go to Kyle Field, that place is rocking. But
That's
they're
like
an
saying
interesting
that your
bunch,
quarterback throws a good deep ball. You know what I mean? He can't throw anything else, so he throws a pretty deep ball.
Yeah, well,
Anyway, I digress. This isn't an A&M podcast, but I'm excited about going to the SEC. We're excited about the road trips, and an Oklahoma fan we're in our heads mentally figuring out how we compete.
yeah.
We know Alabama, we know Georgia. We'll put them one or two, but it's where we fit in that pecking order. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, LSU, Florida, Tennessee, what are they going to be? There's so much talent there.
I'll
You
tell you
saw what
what, though.
Arkansas did to Texas last year.
I wish we were entering now when that LSU and Florida are kind of down. I hope they don't ramp up.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, oh man, let's save that. Let's put that on the back burner for another episode. Other upcoming episodes we're going to be talking about the best and worst Cotton Bowl games.
Yeah.
So get your thinking cap on for those as we come up closer to those. We're going to talk about the most loved / hated players. And I was at a little kid soccer game and got a number of recommendations on the most hated player. It's funny. We didn't even think about our favorite players. We just went straight to most hated players.
Yeah. That we know who the favorites are. That should go without saying, but it's.
So I'm looking forward to seeing who y'all hated on our team. Cause I know who I hated for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And then we'll do we're going to do a season preview at some point this summer.
Yes.
And kind of look at what we think from a prediction standpoint. And then also the format is going to kind of be, once we get going, once a week, we're going to kind of break down the games. We'll break down how they looked.
Yeah, full recap of both teams, how they looked, what we liked, what we hated.
Am I going to have to get the Longhorn Network now?
Possibly.
Can I just come to your house so I don't have to actually support that?
Yes.
Is it on YouTube TV? Can you get the Longhorn Network on YouTube?
You cannot get it on YouTube TV currently. You cannot.
Well, how do you get it?
I don't have it right now.
You don't have. We're going to do a Boomer Bevo podcast, and you don't have the Longhorn Network?
Well, what I do is when there's a game, I get a Sling TV subscription, and they offer it. So that's it. They show about 1 or 2 games a season on there.
This isn't indicative of how much Brown O'Haver pays you, right? I mean, we
no, not at all.
Okay,
no, just
this is your logistics.
Exactly. So,
well, I can get the Longhorn Network on DirecTV, but it just goes against every being. I might actually have it. I don't know. I won't even look at it. It makes me mad to think about it.
If you want to see the 2005 National Championship game, just
I don't want to see that game.
They show it all the time.
I do not. Yeah, that's the old.
Like 10 times a week.
Yeah, I would imagine that's your one highlight of the last 25 years. So yeah, I get it.
There are a few more. But
the first half of last year's game, they probably show that and just ended at halftime.
Yeah, about 2.5 quarters, and then that fell apart. Are we going there already? I thought we were going to build to that.
Hey, but what we want to talk about on this episode, now that we've kind of gotten our intros out of the way and everybody knows who we are and what we're about, I want to talk about with NIL, with the transfer portal, with everything that goes along with college football. The only mainstays are the coaches, right? They set the foundation for the program. And it can have an effect on a program well past their career at the particular school. So to set a foundation both for our programs, but for this podcast and the 2 programs we're going to talk about, I want to talk about the coaches.
All right, let's do it.
And I want to go back as far as Mac and Bob, because that's kind of where I'm a little older than you, but that's kind of where our real interest level really started to pick up.
Right.
I mean, I watched just back in the day. I can tell stories from the 80s and the early 90s. It wasn't great, not really for either of us. I mean, the 80s, yeah, their 80s were actually really good. I mean, the 90s weren't great, but let's for the sake of picking a starting point, let's start talking some coaches, and I want to hear what y'all think about your coaches, our coaches, and vice versa. Does that sound good?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, we'll start off with Mac. Okay. So it was almost, we didn't really appreciate Mac for a while there. Look,
and did you not appreciate him until the national championship, or are you talking about after his career?
it really wasn't until after his career to where we realized everything that he had to deal with. Because Texas is an interesting place where you're not just a football coach. You have to kind of stroke the egos of the boosters and donors. You have to wear a lot of hats. And he was really the best at that, at being a coach and then balancing all those other responsibilities that come with being the head coach at a place like Texas.
Oklahoma fan, on this podcast, I'm going to speak in generalities, and people can comment on it later if they want. But I think Oklahoma fan liked Mac Brown.
Okay.
I think he was a likable character. I think because we had a winning record against Mac, it made us like him even more. But I think most of all, we liked him. And I think we made fun of him. We made fun of losing to us. But at the same time, especially early on, winning a lot of games.
Yeah.
Mac won a lot of football games.
Well, it was tough. It was almost like, remember John Cooper at Ohio State?
Yep.
He would go to, 11-1, 10-2, would lose to Michigan every year. That's how it became with him. They would go 10-2, but they would always lose in the Cotton Bowl. I mean, that five games in a row, it's rough. So it got to the point to where people were thinking, okay, he's a great coach, he's a great recruiter, but when it gets to this big game in this big stage against the best team on the schedule, the team would kind of fold a little bit under that pressure. But as a head coach, it would go to him.
But his wins against OU, the ones he did win, were big wins.
Yeah, well, see, I'm really referring to the first few years, the streak between 2000 and 2004. Yeah, that 5-year span was rough.
Well, I mean, that 5 years cemented Bob's legacy, right? I mean, not to jump around to Bob too much, but that he became big game Bob because he beat Texas 5 times in a row.
Correct.
But back to Mac, he loses 5 times in a row, but then the wins that he does have are ginormous.
It was great after that. I mean, 05, 06, 07 was a close game. 08 was probably the top, one of our top moments in the whole rivalry, and then 09. So to go from losing 5 in a row to winning 4 out of the next 5, it completely transformed what Texas fans thought about him. And then, his reputation from a national standpoint too.
So Mac has one national championship.
Yes.
Which a national championship is a national championship, but one national championship on the shoulders of Vince Young.
Yeah.
And I think that always gets added to that for Mac. It's like, but he had Vince Young. Like no other coach has ever had an amazing player to coach with.
Yeah, and I think that's unfair. Yeah, I think that's very unfair.
I know it's hypothetical, but who cares, right? It's our podcast. We can talk about what we want. Hypothetically, Colt McCoy doesn't get hurt against Alabama, and they win that. What does that do to the trajectory of the program to Mac? I mean, is that the pivot point in Mac Brown's career? Is the 09
it's
injury?
an absolutely legacy defining moment there. I mean, if they win that game, I mean, I've heard that he may have retired after that game and ended his career with, 2 national championships and went on about his way. Will Muschamp, who was a defensive coordinator, they'd already made him the head coach in waiting. He was set to take over the program from there.
A lot of people think everything changed. A lot of people when that first happened with Muschamp thought y'all dodged a bullet by not getting Muschamp. But then, when we get to the rest of your coaches, it's going to be kind of like maybe Muschamp wouldn't have been too bad.
Yeah, it's all been it fell apart. I mean, really, the whole program fell apart after that Alabama game.
I just, we know how good we were in 08.
Yes.
And y'all were right there with us in 08, obviously.
Yes.
09, we thought we were going to be another amazing team. Bradford gets hurt, Gresham's hurt.
Very unlucky. Very unlucky there.
Yeah, you got Landry Jones and, whatever.
Just wasn't ready yet.
When we talk about most hated players, put him on my list. But anyway, so it's going to be, 09, y'all were loaded. What was that defense like on 09?
Oh, it was great. Sergio Kendall, Lamar Houston, Roy Miller. Just talent everywhere. Earl Thomas in the secondary. Yeah, it was great. It was Muschamp leading the way. Incredible on defense. The offense didn't click as much as they did in 08. They didn't have Quan Cosby, who they lost at receiver. So it was really Jordan Shipley and a lot of younger developing players.
Yeah, McCoy was a gamer,
Yeah.
He's not going to show up on my most hated list just because I respected his game.
Yeah.
He fought. He wasn't the most talented guy, but my God, he figured out ways to win ball games. And
he was recruited to be Ryan Perilou's backup.
Right.
That's what we yeah.
It took us 16 minutes to get an obscure reference. That's awesome. Ryan Perilou, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up at LSU, and did he even play a season?
He did play, yeah, and I think they won the SEC championship game with him at quarterback that year.
Oh, maybe they
did.
But
he had off the field stuff that
he was different. He was different.
He was.
Okay, so you get into Mac's waning years, right? So unfortunately for Mac, McCoy did get hurt. You lose to Alabama. You can't really find a quarterback to replace McCoy.
Well,
and go ahead.
Okay. They had Garrett Gilbert. He was 5-star top quarterback in the country. Well, after the Alabama game, he didn't like the fact that they were so reliant on their quarterback. So he changed the offense completely. So he had Greg Davis, instead of running the spread offense that Lake Travis was running, that Texas was also running, he decided to go 2 tight end, fullback, power I, and put Garrett Gilbert under center. And they literally go from.
Why would you do that? Why are you changing the offense of a team that went to a national championship game and coulda, shoulda, woulda went to a national championship game in 08? Like, why are you making that choice? Did that fit his skill set, or was Matt trying to prove something, or what?
I think it's the biggest mistake of his career. They literally go from 11-1 national championship game appearance, Big 12 champions, to 5-7 the very next season. They didn't lose that much talent to justify that kind of drop off. That's an historic drop from a team that's competing for a national championship.
And that's Mac's 5-7 is Mac's worst year.
Correct.
He bounces back 8-5, 9-4. His last year's 8-5. You could make the case it's not a dumpster fire that Mac leaves behind, but it's probably time for Mac to go. He's worn his welcome out. Were y'all ready for him to go? Is that a popular move?
It was time. It was time.
So Texas fans, okay, we're ready for him to go.
Yes.
We bring in your boy, Charlie Strong.
Yes, Coach Strong. First of all, everybody loves Charlie Strong as a person.
Dude, OU fan loved Charlie Strong. OU fan was like, oh, man, this guy's tough. He's going to, boy, we're glad we don't have to play him all the time, blah, blah, blah. He said the right things. He got you kind of fired up. He wasn't great.
No, he did a pretty good job at Louisville with Teddy Bridgewater. And he had an eye for talent, bringing in, a lot of 3-star players and developing them into first round. Yes. But, again, though, I think that's a little bit of luck, too, because they wanted Armani, his brother. So they
really?
took Deontay. Yes.
Tell me that.
Remember,
what's the story?
Armani Foreman was a higher rated recruit. He was a high 4-star receiver. And they kind of wanted to go to school together, but nobody else.
Were they in the same class?
Deontay.
Were they in the same class?
Yes. I believe they're twins.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, I guess I didn't know that.
Yeah. So but nobody wanted to offer Deontay. Nobody.
So
So
he
I
gets
think
credit
if
for
OU would
recruiting
have,
Deontay Foreman, but he really didn't recruit Deontay Foreman. He
yeah.
recruited
Well,
his
I mean,
brother.
he did offer him. I mean, he wanted Armani enough to
Well, it doesn't
offer
matter
Deontay.
because
Nobody else did. Ended up
Um,
being a stud.
real quick, back to Mac Brown real fast. I wanted to make this point. When Mac Brown beat Bob Stoops in his final Red River game, did you get the feeling that that when the coaches met at midfield, that Mac was like, "I got you one last time, USOB." Did you get that
I'm sure
feeling?
he was thinking that. Yeah, there
It's
was
like, you
something
made my
there.
life miserable, and
Yeah, that was
suck
his
it.
one kind of fu on the way out for
I think
sure.
so.
For sure.
I kind of saw that in Mac's eyes. Like, you know what? I got it.
Yeah.
They're running me out of town, but at least I beat you.
Yeah. That was one of the most surprising victories for Texas in the whole, at least my history of the rivalry, and just did not expect that at all.
No.
And the game was not close.
That was the same. We had just come off of playing Notre Dame, beating Notre Dame in South Bend. There was no reason. No reason you all should have won that game.
I thought we were about to get run. I mean, after what had happened the last two seasons.
Yeah.
Before that. Yeah.
So Charlie Strong the last 3 years. And was the job too big?
I think so. Those other things, I think it was just too much. I think Charlie Strong wants to be the football coach. And there's just too many other things, and which as a Texas fan, I don't like the fact that our head coaches have to deal with so much other crap besides just coaching the football team. And of course, everybody has appearances and coaches shows and all that, but it seems to be a lot deeper than that in Austin than it is here in Norman.
It either is, or it's the most often cited excuse for not winning. So it makes me, it's like, how many more? I get it that Texas has the boosters and the 40 acres and Matthew McConaughey on the sideline and the blah, 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 blah. But does not all schools have that? Does not all schools have boosters and guys on the sideline and famous alums? And I mean, why is Texas Texas? Why do they get to use that as an excuse every year for sucking?
I just can't think of another reason why Charlie Strong good at Louisville and then going 5-7 at Texas. Why is Tom Herman 11-1?
Is it because the players are entitled? Are they entitled players? That's
what
OU fan
there may
says.
be something. There may be something to that.
OU fan says that when Texas recruits show up at Texas, they immediately think they've arrived and they're soft.
But how could that be possible when recruiting the same?
They're the same player. They're the same player,
but
when they get to Texas, they get soft.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's a new coaching staff, right? I mean, you set the tone for those players as soon as they step foot on that campus, right? I mean,
yeah,
they get here.
I hear you. I just sometimes think that Texas likes to just have reasons to make up, reasons for excuses for losing.
Well, I'll tell you this.
because we're Texas, and we have to do all this stuff, and people don't have to deal with as much stuff as we do at Texas. Like, okay, why don't you just win football games?
I'll tell you this, it just seems to be a lot to deal with, and the administration seems to be concerned with a lot more other things than winning football games.
Like band songs at the end of games.
Yeah, that's part of it too. But
yeah,
showing, hey, this is such a great academic institution. Hey, look, we have this. Whereas University of Oklahoma says, hey, look, we win football games.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I think we could end the podcast with that line right there. Yes, that's the tagline.
I can't dispute facts.
All right. So Charlie Strong loses to Kansas, which has to be like the lowest point in Texas football in 20 years, right? I mean, maybe longer. I don't know.
By far.
And he's out. Even though Foreman rushes for like 2,100 yards and
2,000 yards, and nobody cares. Nobody
cares that guy was probably the best running back in the last half of the 2010s.
2010s, correct? Yeah.
In the maybe not the country, but at least in the Big 12, maybe the country. I don't know. I mean, he was outstanding.
He was.
Then you get Tom Herman. Holy crap! Now this guy was a douche.
He was an interesting guy, that's for sure.
Does Texas fan agree he was a douche, Kevin? That's what we want to know.
Yes. No one.
How could he not be?
No one likes Tom Herman. You
Did
know,
he? Okay, so like we're not going to talk too much about Brent Venables because he hasn't coached a game yet. So not today anyway. But the sentiment is that Coach Venables has done nothing wrong yet, right?
correct,
Like every step he's taken has been the right thing to do.
correct.
Whether it's how he handled Caleb Williams, whether it's how he's done the spring game, incorporating old players, old coaches, blah, blah, blah. Let me ask, did Tom Herman do anything right in his career?
You know, well, he recruited well, but he didn't develop. He
Are we basing that on recruiting rankings? I'm not being too funny. Are we basing that on
yeah,
recruiting?
we are.
So what was his recruiting rankings? Just ballpark.
You know, I don't have him. You know, top.
Was he top
I think,
5?
Okay, most years, top 10 for sure.
In the
Top
country.
10. The first class was not because it's a transition class. You know how that goes.
Okay.
Guys are decommitting left and right, and he's pulling in. You know, he was at Houston, so he got a few guys he had committed there. Sam Cosme and Daniel Young, running backs that were committed to Houston. He brought them and put them part of Texas recruiting class. So that one was rough. But the next one, I think he had a top 5 class. He had a top 7 class. So all his classes were in the top 10, besides the first one.
So it wasn't the talent.
No.
It's not the resources.
Never. No.
So is it because he had too much other stuff going on to be able to concentrate?
No, it's a complete lack of player development. I don't know what all goes into that, but I mean, we're seeing guys who aren't getting better, who come in, they have a good freshman year, and then 2 to 3 years later, they're just at that same level as they were at the end of their freshman year. Guys aren't getting better.
Was Ellinger what? I mean, I always just thought he was an okay quarterback. Like,
Yeah.
When people use the words gritty and tough to describe athletes, it makes me think they don't win a lot of games. Like that guy's gritty and tough and
they're not
will
super
do
talented.
anything. What's that?
Yeah, it makes me believe that they're not super talented when guys are tough and gritty, you know?
And so if Ellinger is the best quarterback you can have, pretty much Herman's entire career, right? I mean, did he coach?
Oh, absolutely. Shane Buechele was there.
Okay.
That first year, but I mean, about halfway through the season,
it was
Ellinger's job, and he never looked back.
Can you point to Ellinger as the reason they didn't do better? Because if that's the ceiling for quarterback development, is that the reason, or is Ellinger really being held back by Herman?
You know, I think there's something to look at that from both angles. You know, I think he was limited in what he could do, but I thought what he could do was enough to win a lot of football games with. And I don't think he was never a guy that was going to, be a national championship quarterback unless he had, elite talent all around him, kind of like Stetson Bennett at Georgia.
How much did the we're back comment after the Sugar Bowl backfire on Sam Ellinger and Tom Herman?
Tremendously. I don't fault him for saying it.
You don't fault him for saying it.
Not at the moment, no. I think, you get caught up in the moment. Look, this is a guy, he's a Texas fan. He's not because most players are players.
They back up we're back with it. They back up we're back with an 8-5 record in a weak Big 12.
Exactly. And again, I don't fault him for saying it at the moment. He's looking at him like a fan who was seeing a program completely fall off, have no success in 10 years. I mean, he was there as a fan for all of this. It's like, okay, now we've won a Sugar Bowl. We beat a really good Georgia team. And I know they may not have been amped up for it, but, they had beat Georgia, had made the Big 12 championship game, lost a really, really close, great game.
Good game. Yep.
So, it's like beat Georgia. Okay, this is starting to come together, And I think he got caught up in the moment. Holly Rowe asked him. He lost it. So, but it did backfire for sure.
So, what was it? Just the 8-5 with Herman, or was it just everything that Herman brought to the table that they just couldn't handle it anymore? Texas in the last.
It was everything. I mean, if you're gonna go 8-5, you at least have to be likable. You're everybody and can't dislike you.
When they're in the interview process, how does anybody sit across the table from Tom Herman and like that person? Like want to work with Tom Herman?
I'm not sure, but I mean, this guy was the hottest coach available. I mean, any program that was hiring a head coach would have hired him. I mean, LSU only hired Ogeron because Tom Herman decided to go to Texas. He could have gone anywhere.
I wish I could do a Coach O impersonation.
Yeah, that's
it's like sure. It's like a I think of like what's the Adam Sandler movie?
Which one?
With Bobby Boucher.
Oh, The Waterboy.
Yeah, I think of like The Waterboy. Like, I'm sure that's cliched when you think of Ogeron, but it really is like
just deeper though. Just
yeah. My parents lived in Louisiana for like 20 years, and that's absolutely Louisiana. Like Ed Ogeron is the dude that you buy your gas from.
Yeah,
he's likable.
He is Louisiana.
He's a likable man.
Extremely.
Apparently not from like assistant athletic director wives who are pregnant don't like him.
That's a different story, but yes.
But everybody else likes Coach O.
Everybody loves Coach O.
His girlfriend's kids get to go to practice. It's great. Tom Herman, on the other hand, unlikable.
Unlikable.
And so he gets fired for being unlikable. Is that right? Is that the way we make decisions at Texas?
Being
it's
8-5,
really hard to justify it either way, isn't it?
8-5 though, I mean,
it was terrible.
It just losing games. Look, losing to super talented teams, losing to OU, as much as it frustrates Texas fans, you get it because I mean it's a great program with great players.
Yeah.
When you're consistently losing to the likes of, West Virginia and Kansas State and it's teams that you should beat.
Yeah.
And every year.
So enough of that loser. You go on to Sarkisian. Sarkisian has gone through the Nick Saban car wash, right? He's cleaned up his act.
I like that, by the way, the Nick Saban car wash.
You're welcome. Yeah, you can use that. So, and he's no longer a drug addict or alcoholic. He's cleaned up, right? He's not going to be slurring speeches in front of boosters because there's so much to handle at Texas, right? I mean,
there's a lot. Mm-hmm.
So we're confident that he's going to, keep that going. And so you hire Steve Sarkisian from Alabama, albeit that being said, the offenses he coached were unbelievable at Alabama.
Yeah, historically.
Is that Sark or is that players?
It's both. It's both.
Okay.
Because I mean, we've seen teams. I mean, if you look at Georgia's offense over the years, they've got 5-star guys, offensive line. They've got 4- and 5-star receivers and running backs, and their offense doesn't look like that.
Right.
Even with Justin Fields and Jake Fromm was a 5-star. Jacob Eason was a 5-star. So in Georgia, they just have never looked like that. They've never had that sort of offense. So
I think OU fan thought it was a weird hire.
Okay.
I think it was the obvious hire because of the success.
Okay.
But when you took a step back and said, okay, what was his record at Washington?
Yeah.
Not great. What was his record at USC?
Yeah.
Not great.
Mediocre. Absolutely. Uh-huh.
So as a head coach, you've had mediocre performance. You are a coordinator for the. I hear you talking about scheme and all that. I'll give it to you, but honestly, the most talent-laden team in college football, and has been, and unfortunately looks like will be for a little bit longer.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere.
You bring them in, and you go 5-7.
Yes.
Is Texas fan saying the haters were right, or that he just needs to get his own guys in?
I think everybody's trying to give him time. We've ran so many coaches out of town. I mean, Charlie Shawn was gone after 3 seasons, 4 for Herman. I think everybody's just saying, the jury's still out. Basically.
What do you think? What does Kevin Miller? What does Kevin Miller think on the first episode of Boomer Bevo Podcast? I will play this after the season.
Mark the tape.
Yes, this is a hot take.
Okay, mark the tape here. All right.
Steve Sarkisian gonna make it for you guys? Is he the man?
I don't know if he's the man. Look,
that's the weakest.
Hold on, I'm not done yet.
Kevin, we are not on the Boomer Bevo Podcast to give I don't know answers. All right, we want definitive. episode. Like, we want people to tune in and go, oh my God, this Kevin Miller says like the craziest stuff. All right, I'm ready.
Okay,
I'm going to ask you a question again.
First of all, you know I'm not a hot take guy. But here's what I'll say.
Fair enough.
Here's what I said. I think he'll be successful. I think he will be better than Herman ever was.
Well, I hope so.
And I mean, Charlie Strong, it won't take much from the win loss column to be better.
What does Sark need to, what is Sark, does he need, does it come down to, does Beat know you enough to secure him a job this upcoming season?
I think that certainly helps.
He's going to lose to Bama. We know that. That's a loss.
Yeah. I mean,
and you're probably going to lose to TCU because y'all always lose to TCU.
Yeah, he beat TCU last year.
Did you lose to Oklahoma State?
Yes.
We did too. So I guess we can't say too much. But anyway, I mean, does Beat know you get him another year guaranteed no matter what? Is he on any kind of hot seat?
No, not this year. Look, if he goes 5-7 again, look, it's going to be up for discussion. It's going to be, yeah.
But who's left? Who's left to go get?
Yeah.
Let's start talking future Texas coaches. Let's start talking future Texas coaches.
Are we going there already?
This is the road we're going down.
Okay, there's got to be a hot OC somewhere. There's no. I haven't made a short list. There's no. Oh my God. There's no short list.
Kevin,
we're all in. We're all in with Sark. We're all in.
Kevin, we are 36 minutes into our first episode.
All right.
My podcast advisors, Alice Young, have told me that most people only listen to 35 to 45-minute podcasts.
Okay.
Since we have just finished talking about Steve Sarkisian and we're going to transition over, I think this is a good time to end episode 1. And we will pick back up with the legendary Bob Stoops. How does that sound?
Let's do it. Sounds great.
Everybody, thank you for listening to the inaugural Boomer Bevo podcast. We're excited to get this started. We're open to feedback and comments and suggestions. Put them all on my social media page. Look me up at John doesn't have Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or MySpace, and post whatever you want there. I don't care. But for real, we appreciate y'all listening. And Kevin, let's pick this up in episode 2.
Looking forward to it.
All right, buddy.
Have a good one.